2.5, 1 3/4. Yes. Okay. Well, hello everybody and welcome. This is my third interview, and I'm joined by the lovely Queen. Your Mom's Twerk Team is our Twitter handle. And I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to the Twerk Team for her to introduce herself as the Queen she is.
Well, I am Kendra. I'm an atheist living in Alabama. I'm married, been married for 21 years now, have one grown adult son. He's out of the house. So that's pretty much my life. Just, it is what it is. It's not very exciting, but it's an existence.
Nothing sacred, but it's a living.
I love it.
I always have the joke I make where it's like I walk to work and someone will be like, "What's up, man?" And I'll go, "Living the dream," and they'll go, "Man, it feels great," and I'll just run with, crack wasn't working, so I switched to cocaine." This should be my friends get to. All right, so what I brought you here for an interview about is about the project I'm doing right now. It's a long-running project. It's called the All-American Nightmare. It's just kind of a video essay series on the lesser-known issues of Americans' kind of public school images, and just the general issues that people don't seem to talk about, and offering a different perspective on them. So the one that I'm talking
Yeah.
about today is how the dress code, or quote-unquote dress codes, uh, have been made up for schools, and obviously we've heard that they're sexist, they're misogynistic, but I've noticed that there isn't a lot of data on them, but what data does exist currently is showing there's a disproportionate amount of bias placed upon women of color with school dress codes. And so I figured, well, I want to talk about this, but I am a white, bisexual, hetero-passing male, so I really can't talk on the experiences of women of color. So I've been gathering up women of color and some trans women to kind of talk on this issue, because I feel that if we're going to get the stories and we're going to get the actual lived experiences and get some kind of proof to paper, it should come from the mouth itself.
Yes.
Okay. So kind of tell me
Okay.
what do you remember about a dress code when you were in school?
Well, the school that I attended when way back when, we were close to an active military base, so we had a good mixture of kids back then.
Mm.
And so we had kids from all over the world, and they were bringing their experiences to us, and so they really rubbed off on us, even though we're in this little bitty Alabama nowhere town. So our principal was really cool, our vice principal really cool, and I had a different experience also, even intertwined in that, because my mother was also an educator, and so was my aunt. And my other aunt was a business owner. So in this little tiny town, I had two aunts that were also in the education system that everyone knew, all the teachers, and they knew each other from one school to another. Then I had an aunt who was a business owner that was well known. So I really didn't get a lot of, I didn't get in a lot of trouble. I think I probably got away with a lot of things, but it wasn't that strict. Our principal, I remember him all the time saying, if you just make sure, you come to school clean and your butt isn't hanging out. and we were able to abide by that. But like I said, I had a different experience because, I was, I guess, not sheltered. What's the word? Favored, maybe, because the administration knew my family. But the way that I dressed back then, though, I mean, it was back when, let's see, Nirvana, when they were kicking off. So can you imagine what that looked like? And me, I really never had a style. I just like clothes, whatever. I dressed grunge. I dressed skater. I did everything. It was like, hey, I like this. I guess these days, well, back then they would call it a poser. But I mean, I did skate. I did listen to grunge. I just didn't have a definite box. I was also a pageant girl. I was head majorette. I twirled baton. So it was like I did a lot of stuff. I was just weird.
Okay. Well, I mean, weird is good in my book. I kind of had the exact opposite aspect of that. I dressed pretty blasé milquetoast until I got to the age of about 12, 13, when I could actually get on a bus with my friends and go to like the mall at 13, and then I discovered Hot Topic. And at one point in time, I had a mohawk that stood about almost a foot off my head that was white and cut forward, and the rest of my head was completely shaved. And I was a delinquent in school, so like I got good grades, like I pulled A's and B's. But I had teachers that would like there was not probably a day that I went by that I wasn't in the principal's office for arguing with teachers on stuff. And I got called the F slur quite a bit, so that was kind of my thing. And then when I did actually start dressing nice, when I started like getting my senior year, because it's like, oh yeah, you're gonna have to be going off to college, so you gotta actually grow out some hair. I kind of dressed, I guess, European or effeminate, and that just kind of increased the because at least when I dressed like crazy with like graphic T-shirts that said like uh, like fuck the man and shit like that. Like at least when I had shirts like that, the teachers would be like, "Oh, that's not appropriate." I'm like, "What about it's not appropriate?" And they're like, and they would try to get me like, "Well, it's swearing at school." I'm like, "Okay, so do you want me to take you down to the English class where they have the word bastard and fucking where the red fern grows?" And like right to the office, I'm like, all right, First Amendment right. I was that annoying grunge kid, but I did get good grades. Like if it would be a different thing if I was just like failing and just like I was delinquent and failing school, because that's what pissed the teachers off. Because if I was just failing school, they could write me off, but I was actually doing well in school, so they had to actually like consider. It was always great when you had the teachers that walk up and be like, "We're going to follow your career very closely," as they're talking to a kid with a bright magenta shirt and black chained pants with a white, pale ass white mohawk up the top.
Things like that. Even though we were a very mixed up bunch of kids, some kids just still didn't get it. They still had those parents that were, small town, just can't get past the mentality. So stuff
Hmm.
like that scared them to death. Where I was just like, well, that's cool. I'll never forget. There was two gentlemen that wore skirts to school, and I was like, yeah. But there were people freaking out and just going crazy, and I'm just like, it's a skirt.
Was it an
It just things
actual
like that just
skirt or
didn't
was
bother
it a
me.
kilt?
No, it was a skirt. It
Oh,
was a
okay.
long black skirt, and they had on leather jackets, and it never bothered me. I was like,
Mhm.
and they're wearing clothes.
Right?
I mean, it stuff like that just it didn't bother me. I mean, I guess because being a black atheist woman in Alabama, that opens you up to a lot of stuff. I mean, it's like, who am I to point the finger? I'm on the short end of the stick, anyways. So
Um,
stuff it just didn't get to me.
so I guess it's a good place to segue into our first question, which I have, which is what kind of four words would you use to describe your state's dress code or whatever dress codes you have experienced in school, what little there was?
From what I experienced,
Mm-hmm.
I would say, and honestly, back then, I would say it was progressive.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Another word I would say, it was progressive. I would say probably it was flexible. It was
Flexible.
flexible back then. Um, I can't think of it. Really back then in my day. It honestly it wasn't biased. It was non-biased back then, and it was equally. Um, I'm losing my words here. It's getting late. It
That's all right.
was equally applied. It was
Mm-hmm.
equally applicable across the board. No one got away with anything when it came to things like that. Um, Now, what I mean when I said that I was kind of, I guess, sheltered or coddled because my mother was administration and my aunt. Um, as far as like behavior wise, like I was late for class, all that kind of stuff, and it's like, okay, Kendra, get get in there or whatever. Where anybody else, they probably get detention. It took a lot of reprimands to even get me to detention. But when it came to dress code, I didn't ever push that issue, anyways. And when I say that it was really progressive and it was non-biased, I guess our principal understood that the issue is not everyone's body is the same when it comes to females. Um, so certain things fit people different ways, and you can't, if you say a skirt has to be this long on, a certain body type, that just doesn't work. Because if I put my hands down next to my sides and you're telling me that my skirt has to meet the middle of my middle finger, that's totally different because I have a long torso and pretty long legs. Someone else might have a short torso and very long legs. So it was one of those things. It couldn't be, I mean, what it says in the print work just couldn't be applicable to everyone in the real world, if you understand
Yeah.
what I mean by that. So it was like a case by case issue. But
Mhm.
honestly, he really worked off of the mantra of as long as your butt ain't hanging out, it's okay.
So, are you actually interested? One of the things I bring up with this video is, do you actually know where the fingertip rule for your hands had to be down below your skirt came from?
I don't know.
Okay.
And the thing is, like, whose body type did you get that from? Because, like I
So,
said,
would
even the athletes.
would you like to know where it came from?
Yes, please.
So originally, a lot of guys, it came about in the late 1970s, 1980s, because this is actually a long court case, and a lot of guys would wear their shirt, their pants, I guess like Hardy Boy shorts, or they wore them like way up at the top of their thighs. They had like booty shorts, and girls would do the
Yeah.
same. Girls would do the same thing, and that was just that was like the workout routine. And then in the summer, most people didn't wear shirts or shorts. They wore like jeans or they wore skirts. But there was a movie that came out that was like, I guess I think it was with a black woman. It was one of those like noir cop, you know, buddy cop movies, and the gal wore like cut off jean shorts, which were pretty popular in like in the South because like you wear jeans until they rot away. And these were
Yeah.
eventually accepted. So this is a pretty common thing, especially in New York among like immigrant populations. And then what happened was is that they only became really like acceptable in public culture about the time Daisy Duke wore them on the Dukes of Hazzard, which is actually where they got their name from, is Daisy Duke, even though she ended up like wearing them way long after everybody else did. But what happened was
Yeah.
is there was also a thing at the same time that a adult film came out based on Catholic schoolgirls, and the reason why it came out with Catholic schoolgirls is because kind of sexy costumes weren't really a thing yet that you could go out and get for like big porn shoots. So what these people would do is they go out and buy any like outfit they could get and then modify it to fit the porn shoot. And this is why like, sexy maids, bunny girls, and Catholic schoolgirls were picked. So this film got out and a bunch of moms saw it and they thought, okay, oh well, if the girls start watching this, they're gonna pull their skirts up really high and I'll do anything for an A professor. And so there was this big hullabaloo about how far a skirt should go, pencil skirts in the workplace, and basically a Catholic someone higher than a priest, but not to the point of a hierophant, in New Jersey, basically just made the decision that if your skirt was down below your fingertips, which for most people with a proportioned body, and by most people with proportioned body we mean white folk, when they bend over at a 90-degree angle, because at the time it was the 1970s, white women hadn't discovered what an ass was yet. They would bend over, and that's about the same distance at a 90-degree angle. Your skirt will still cover your butt.
I had no clue.
Now, here's my big question. How did all these soccer moms who were afraid of their daughters hiking up their skirts really high to imitate an adult film, how did they know about the adult film, number one? And number two, how would their kids get access to it? Because this was the 1970s where like Blockbuster still existed.
It's that's so funny too because I have pictures of me as a child and I had on like I guess they were considered those booty shorts.
Yeah, they were,
It,
for the
it,
longest time, actually booty shorts were actually very common in men in the military because of PT shorts, because that's how short
yeah,
men would cut their
I've got
shorts.
pictures of my dad in booty shorts.
Yeah, and that was just
Unfortunately,
the Top Gun volleyball, the homoerotic volleyball scene. That is very common because, and that was the best thing, is that booty shorts were not considered sexualized until that movie came out, and till kind of the Reagan administration started going after black people for being indecent or immoral, and they used that as a
uh,
thing. Which is funny because, of course, booty shorts declined, and you're supposed to wear your shorts long until Daisy Duke showed up with them on the Dukes of Hazzard, and suddenly, because the white girl was doing it, it was perfectly acceptable to bring it back again.
and then we brought it back again with the Daisy Dukes. That girl, look at those girls with Daisy Dukes on. Then we started, we wear our Daisy Dukes, and it was acceptable for
Hmm.
a time. We couldn't get away with it in school, but the way that we did get away with it in school is that we mixed it with grunge and we put thermals on underneath it.
Yeah,
So we could wear our Daisy Dukes and we put our thermals on underneath it.
And that actually is a good segue into the next question is that do you think personally that a dress code needs to be implemented beyond what the social norm dictates? So like the social norm right now is that men wear, when you're going somewhere fancy, you wear a nice button-up shirt, but otherwise like a t-shirt and jeans is acceptable, and girls can wear t-shirts and jeans or dresses. Just kind of like when you go
Mhm.
out in public, what you see, that's the social norm. Do you think we need to implement a dress code beyond that? Do you think the social norm kind of takes care of it?
That's the thing. Like a social norm, that would be kind of tricky because the social norm in the South and the social norm somewhere else, say like New York or something, is totally different. So like, how would I don't understand like how you would who would be dictating it, number one, and how you would dictate it. Like, um would it be in like region wise or what? Like, maybe I don't understand the question.
Yeah,
'Cause-
so like for example, when in the 1950s, where there actually really wasn't a dress code beyond like the social expectation, men were expected to
uh-huh.
wear t-shirts or I guess undershirts. They were expected to wear like a button-up shirt, tuck your shirt in, and wear
Yes.
slacks. And that was just accepted as like that's what everybody wore because that's what the clothing options at the time were. And that
Yeah.
worked out pretty well. No one really had an issue with it, and they went with that. And same thing like in the 1970s, the bell-bottom jeans that was acceptable.
Yeah.
Women still had to wear dresses in a lot of like professional settings, but some schools allowed
Yes.
jeans, some schools didn't. It was mostly on the.
Yeah.
That's something like social norm is like pretty much if you just don't give people a dress code, you say just come dressed how you normally do on your casual days,
Yeah, I
and that
gotcha.
yeah.
But I mean, back then, to me, it would have been easier. Now, I don't think that would be as easy
Hmm.
because now when you even say casual dress, like in the office, casual dress, you can wear jeans with casual in some offices. So that's why I'm like, who's dictating this?
Hmm.
And like, how would you make this, like, what's the norm now? I guess I'm out of touch. I haven't worked in an office where you had to wear business clothes. The last job that I had, we had to wear scrubs in the office. I was working for a medical office,
Hmm.
so I don't understand anymore like what the business casual is anymore. What's acceptable? Because I mean, you used to have to cover tattoos. I know I had some friends that I talked to in the bank, and they used to have to cover all tattoos. They would have to wear even in the summertime long sleeve shirts. Now things are changing. I've seen doctors and everybody with tattoos exposed. So it's like,
So
what is the norm now?
I mean, I guess that's a good question because it does. I mean, it does allow for people to kind of like flex the norm as they need to, like, let's say like, oh, we have this is the social norm, and now it's changed. I know a lot of girls now to kind of combat the boys that wear their pants low, will actually have like
Yeah.
their whale tails pulled up as like a way of like the masculine way of wearing your underwear, which I thought was kind of funny. But with so I work in a liquor store. I work in a brewery actually. Our boss is pretty much like, okay, you have a t-shirt as your uniform because you're gonna be up and down on the ladders, you're gonna be moving around, you're gonna be throwing stuff. You're gonna need to like wear your uniform. But like if you're doing a day where like you're working in the warehouse and we're packing kegs, that's gonna be hot, sweaty work. You can take your work uniform off or your work shirt off, and you can work in your
Yeah.
undershirt. And that's just like, well,
Yeah.
guy, that's the same as like guys in like the old factories, like taking their shirts off and like putting them up on
Mhm.
the rack and then working in their undershirts because it's hot. As
Yeah.
far as in the offices, still, I mean, when I go to like client meetings, to, like try a new product to try and sell our product, I'm expected to wear a nice dress shirt because it's a business meeting. So that's kind of the
Yes.
social norm. As far as tattoos go, I think the tattoo thing kind of started just because everybody has tattoos now. They've become so normalized, and that's kind of why I say like the social norm, like when it's like okay, who dictates the social norm? And that's kind of the joy of the social norm is it's really anybody can dictate it and everybody dictates it. And it's just kind of like tattoos when I was a kid growing up. Like if you had tattoos on your face, it was like, oh, that's so horrible. And now it's like, yeah, there's lots of people with
Yeah.
tattoos on their face. It's not a big deal.
That's why I'm saying it's like the social norm is changing so
Hmm.
much, and me being older, I don't know. Like, I mean, I know where it is in my generation or what it was, but like these new kids, they're coming up, and it's like you have to, jobs need to be very specific on it because even piercings, a lot of girls now have facial piercings, like nose piercings. I have a little bitty rhinestone, and I know for the longest, you used to have to cover that up,
Yeah.
or you had to put in a clear piece. So that's changing now. Even like multiple piercings, I know some jobs wouldn't, if you had more than, I think, two on each side, they would make you remove them.
Yeah.
So it's like, what is the norm now? Everything is just totally different and amazing and scary at the same time for me now.
Okay. So,
I just
so
hope that I haven't reached that phase of get off my grass. I don't ever want to hit that
gone full boomer. Okay, so I will say,
phase.
so you think that there should kind of be at least some like a guideline written down for dress code in school, like, at the very least a guideline.
Yes.
Hmm.
There should be, of course, there has to be some limits because,
Okay.
you don't want, you don't want somebody walking in looking like Cardi B. You know what I'm saying? It's just
I mean,
that would be a little
as a
bit,
teenage boy, I wouldn't say no, but
yeah.
so
I can't, number one, I can't imagine if that would be comfortable all day, but it, you know,
I mean,
I don't like school uniforms though. That's
right.
one thing that but then again, I'm kind of flexible on it. You're able to style it because some school uniforms have very strict rules set with them. I know
Oh,
here in the South
we'll
they do,
we'll we'll
especially with the private schools.
we'll get into that in just a moment. Don't you worry. Um, so would you say that schools should have like their each individual dress code or guideline, or do you think there should be like a federally implemented dress code? Like,
No, not a federal,
okay,
not a
not a federal.
federal.
Okay,
No,
okay.
I don't think so.
And then you answer this next question. We asked, did you ever get cited for breaking dress code? If so, were the violations? You said, nah, it was pretty clear cut. Um,
Yeah.
so do you know that schools do not have to report violation numbers to an outside party? It's all internally regulated when there is a dress code violation.
They don't.
Right, yeah. So schools have to report like their disciplinary, like how many kids got detention each year, how many kids got ISS.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
but
they don't have to report
and the
dress code violations.
violations, those violations, like it's been a long time since I've even seen one of those books because my son graduated about 3, 4 years ago.
Mhm.
But I know that like they break it down. It's almost like felonies and misdemeanors. So you have like a class A, class B, or class one, two, three. I don't know how they categorize it now. Of
Mhm.
like being late for class or a dress code violation, I believe, is in the same class of offenses. And then there are things like fighting and things like that are in different classes. But I can't remember how things are classified anymore. But I do remember there being like a hierarchy of offenses. And honestly, I don't know if those are included in any kind of report because I was in a city school. My mother worked for the county and they did things a little bit different. So I'm not sure if that was a thing that was actually reported in city schools.
It's never really been reported before, but like I said, like with detentions, you have to report that to someone higher up. There are stats on it. Dress code violations, pretty much you can have an infinite number of them, and nobody really double checks them. There's not a lot of like kickback you can do to it unless one gets to, like the Supreme Court. And now that we're actually tracking some number on them preliminarily for the schools who volunteer with us, we're finding a lot of this data that I'm going to be sharing with you, which is actually this next question. Based on the data we have, did you know that boys break the dress code 4 times as often as women, yet the dress codes on average are 70% of their restrictions are based on women's clothing alone?
Did not know that, but honestly, I could see how that could happen.
So the numbers are negating for like jewelry, because obviously like, women will wear a lot more jewelry than men.
Mhm.
This is strictly like rules that pertain to dresses, rules that pertain to women's jeans, rules that pertain to women's yoga pants. We find out that
Yeah.
on average, 70% of the dress code is strictly geared towards clothes that only women would have.
I
Yet,
know there was an issue with the shirts, also
mhm,
blouses. That has a lot of limitations. I do remember certain things about that. They can't be cut so low. They can't be a certain cut. Um, so, now, back in my day, you could wear sleeveless. Now
yep,
you can't. I don't want to fit in. A lot of us did. The jokes about, hey, your hair is nappy and all this kind of stuff. And it was one of those things that it was because no one was thinking about us. when they pushed the norm or what was acceptable, it was all on Eurocentric standards.
Yeah.
So, we kind of got pulled into that, and so it caused us to start straightening our hair and relaxing and everything. But, me being my aunt, the hairstylists, they do what's popular. They fall into trends also. But now that it's more acceptable to have your natural hair, we can work with other things. But in school, I do remember a lot of us having relaxed hair. I had natural hair all the way up until I think 6th or 7th grade, and then I started relaxing it. But then I also started coloring, so I backed off the relaxers, and it's totally different now. And like I say, I still don't understand though where they got the overreach or thought that they had they think that they have the authority to come after someone's hair. It makes no sense to me.
So a lot of it I've kind of done with my research is I found out that a lot of this was just like um, essentially because no one was doing Overwatch on the schools, they pretty much had carte blanche to do as they saw fit. And there wasn't a lot of pushback on how people were, especially in a time frame where like people were very much like, oh, well, the black folk will do like I'm guaranteed I don't have to explain to you what was like life was like for black folk in the 90s
Oh
when this
yeah.
started up. So and in the 2000s, also schools tend to, and I worked in school for a few years, so schools tend to attract a lot of sociopaths. There's a lot of teachers I saw, like I have kids that would come in every day and just like the very basic like, hey, this is how we should treat children was just seen as like, no, these are little mongrels, and if you don't like sit here with like a ruler and whip their ass every day so they stay in line, they will plot your downfall. I'm like, I think I know why your kids hate you. Like Miss Crabtree, I'm beginning to believe all those horrible things I read about you on the bathroom wall. Question 8. Dress codes are often cited as preparing children for the working environment. If that is the case, shouldn't dress codes be reflective of an actual business environment?
So
No?
yeah, but not though is not every child goes into a business environment to work. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Um, it depends on what this child is doing. You don't wear business clothes to the salon. You spend a lot of money because that bleach and that color that ain't coming out once it hits your shirt. It's just not.
Right.
That's why salons either wear scrubs. A lot of them now are doing aprons over t-shirts and leggings. You're on your feet for hours at a time. You're working with chemicals. Um, some salons still do really dressy, but it depends on your salon. But it doesn't make sense to wear nice dressy clothes to somewhere where you're getting dirty. If you're in the service industry, or any kind of service industry, I can't imagine you in the field of their business. That's ridiculous. I understand what they're trying to do. The dress code, I get it. I was taught things like that, and I had actually a subject in high school called business. It was business communications. And we covered things like that, but like I said, I never was going into the business world. So you have to address the issue of their career. I do understand that there needs to be a standard as far as like business office, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But each job, they handle that themselves pretty much. They explain that. So
Okay.
I guess that's where I stand on that.
Did you know that schools often levy women's clothing as distracting towards men? This is largely without evidence. Do you think violations should be subject to an appeal if they do not provide a valid reason? So, I guess primarily, I mean, I'm sure you've heard that women's clothing like that distracts the men. But if a girl gets like sent home under the auspices of her clothes were distracting, do you think she should be allowed to like kind of appeal that or like demand some type of like administrative overhaul?
Oh, definitely.
Okay.
Definitely. Like, I know they called hair color distracting. Those were the exact words used when kids would ask, can they color their hair? Every year that came up as an issue. There's like I guess a parent-teacher forum type thing. And then there's something where kids can actively participate at my son's school, and they would ask a question, what about hair color? And me being in hair, I don't see a problem with hair color. And I told him, I said, if hair color is one of those things that distracts your kid, you got bigger issues coming up the pipeline. So I guess I'm so gung ho about hair because I'm involved in it, and that never really made sense to me. I don't understand it. And like I said, yes, you should be able to appeal that because, I mean, what about it? I mean, I get it. They're kids. They're full of hormones. This is going to happen. But the clothing itself, I mean, come on. That's distracting you. I guess I'm just in awe of the things now that they give justifications and excuses for. And you would think that, me being a parent, I guess they think that I'm that type, that I should be on their side with it, the conservative side of it, of look at these kids, look at what they're wearing, blah, blah, blah. And I'm for the kids every time. I'm like, absolutely not.
Right. So, do you think there is a merit behind the idea? And I'll read the quote. Do you think there's any merit behind this concept? Quote, dress codes exist as an unofficial uniform policy to allow for discrimination of people of color and that which is considered non-white.
Do you mean is that very truthful?
Do you think there's any merit behind that statement?
I can see where that's a valid statement.
Okay.
Let me make sure that I'm understanding it correctly. Let me quote this. Like I had mentioned earlier, because of our different body types, something that should be totally in dress code and acceptable when it's on this young lady as opposed to if another child comes up with it, it's going to look totally different and it's going to be all of a sudden unacceptable because certain things will be accentuated on the other child. Is that what we're working with?
Kinda. What the speaker was saying was more like in her bigger text. She stated that basically you couldn't, if you implement like a uniform policy for schools, you can't always implement that across all public schools because then of course in like lower income schools there's also a few court cases that state the school would have to provide uniforms to students who can't have it. There's also a court case that says the school can't require mandatory uniforms for kids below a certain level of education. Basically, if you're going to have your kids have uniforms like a private school, that the school has to be able to perform at a private school level. So what they kind of do is they kind of do this soft, and also that a way to keep predominantly people of color out of private schools in the 1960s and 70s was to implement a dress code policy and make the uniforms so expensive that they couldn't afford to take them. So kind of the way they got around that is to like make like a soft uniform policy that they could enforce more vaguely, more like unilaterally, and then of course you can use that to discriminate against people of color more systematically.
I got you. What's funny about that too is that you can get school uniforms at the hair store now. At the black hair store. Yes. You can go to the black hair store where a lot of black women go because that's where we can get our bundles, we can get our braiding hair, we can get our hair color, all that kind of stuff. They also have children's school uniforms. Yes, they do. We're not going to go get it.
I was actually kind of laughing. So because I have very Jewish hair, if I let my hair grow long enough, I actually was able to like have a fro that I had to pick. And I actually had when it got big enough, I actually had to go to the one black barber in Seattle that was near my house, and the guy had to show me how to pick my hair. One sec.
I mean, my son, he's biracial. He's black and white. And he has curly hair, but it's like big barrel curls, and it's really soft. So you wet it, and it's barrel curl. And I'll never forget when the Justin Bieber type swoop hairdo came through. He wanted that hairdo, and I was trying to explain to him, like, I can't make your hair do that. So I took my straightener out, and we tried to straighten it out because I wasn't going to put a chemical on his hair. And I showed him. I was like, no, this is just not happening. So we tried to do it, and he just had to deal with it. But he always wore his hair big and curly, and now I've noticed that's the thing. These little, now I'm going to sound old, these TikTok boys with the shaved down sides and the big curly hair, that's the thing. He's totally in style. So he's been rocking that hairstyle for years. It just,
well, it was
oh, go ahead.
it was weird too because like being a white kid that has to go to like the black barber to get the hair. That's actually our turn into the mohawk is because this guy was like, you got some curly ass hair, dude. He's like, this is the first white. He's like, are you sure you ain't like Michael Jackson? Because you're the first white boy I've seen that's got hair this fucking curly and shit. And so he's like, this is insane. And that's when I learned about do rags. So he explained to me,
Yeah.
and I laughed when I went to school one time, and I had actually put like some of chemical in my hair. And the guy was like, yeah, just tie this do rag around your head, and you'll be good to go. Like, put it on your head. Get your head wet with the silk do rag on, and then this will get you like a wave, which will help control these curls. And I went to school, and they immediately threw me in the principal's office, and like, that's a gang affiliation. I'm like, it's a hair accessory, like it's for my hair. And they made me take it off, and it ruined it. And I've worked in kitchens where like everybody has like do rags. I've gone to a kitchen where I worked with a black guy. He's like, I'm trying to get my weave set in, but like this grease is gonna mess with my hair. I was like, I got a spare do rag over there. You can go to like borrow it. He's like, shit, you got a do rag. So it was really weird to me because I learned do rags from I had really weird hair that like basically only a black person knew how to deal with. And then on the flip side, my school's like, that's gang affiliation. I'm like, what gang am I with? Like the West Side Jews? Like the East Valley Goyims? The Ninth Street Hoopspas?
That's why I'm just like, I don't know if it big there, but undercuts here, where they cut designs in the back of your hair,
Yeah.
that was really big here, especially when Black Panther dropped. Everybody was getting shaved now. Some white girls always messaging me, you know where? And I'm like, yeah, go to the black barbershop. They'll line you up. Because most white barbers don't do that. They just don't.
Right.
So everybody was trying to figure out where to get this new cut. I'm like, the black barbershop, we've been doing it for years.
Thank you for cultural appropriating. We appreciate that. Nah. You white folk don't gotta stop. You haven't stopped in the past 300 years. We ain't expecting you to do it now.
Like, to me, it never got on my nerves. White people, if somebody wearing cornrows, go ahead. It doesn't bother me. More power to you. It's just a hairstyle. And people like to experiment with hair. And I love to see that. Everybody. I want everybody, especially color. Black women were afraid of color for the longest. And I had to explain to them, I was like, it's okay. You can do this. They don't like getting lighter or quote-unquote bleach. They were afraid of that. A lot of it, because black women, if you're using a relaxer, you can't mix bleach with that because it'll tear your hair out.
Right.
But there are things that, if you go natural, there are a lot of things you can do with your hair. Like now I'm doing natural, and I'm going back blonde. And it's a lot easier to do that now than if I have a relaxer. But it's just that, now that we're able to wear our natural hair and it's more acceptable, we can do more things with it. And that's another thing that I've noticed. When we do certain things with our hair, it'll be labeled as ghetto or whatever. But if a white girl does it, oh, that's so cool. That's so, daring. All these bold colors and everything. We've been doing that for years. We just use fake hair, weave, so that we didn't damage our own. Because all those processes are damaging on your hair if you do them constantly. But we were wearing extensions and everything with color, and it was ghetto. But now that white girls are doing it, it's so neat and it's so expressive. And I saw that and I was like, I don't understand this.
So you already kind of answered question 11 that you kind of think the social norm on dress code kind of goes tentatively with some things. There should be some guiding line. What do you think? Question 12. What do you think about the fact that in all schools polled, which is about roughly 356 or 357 schools that they did this with, they polled all the teachers. They checked all the write-ups as much as the number of information as they could. A common trend occurred, and that was that 7 to 12 teachers made up about 65 to 83% of the school's dress code write-ups.
The teachers were one.
Yeah, so this was basically because the schools kind of conflate teacher and administrator, And of course,
Yeah.
some schools are more like they'll write you a dress code violation, and it's like, okay, it's a violation.
Yeah.
The kid just like throws a sweatshirt on, and we call it even. But
Yeah.
they still gave us the information. Some of them were only counting the dress code violations that get challenged or that are like really strict, like this is like a go home and change type thing. So that's why our numbers are
Yeah.
kind of spread out. But yeah, across most of the dress code write ups, we're only finding that a small handful of teachers in a lot of these schools, about 7 to 12, make up about most if not all of the dress code violations. And the other dress code violations that are made up by the teachers are like really glaring ones, like people like me wearing a T-shirt that says "fuck you" with like a middle finger on it.
Yeah.
Like that's a pretty glaring violation. But yeah, we're finding out that yeah, it's basically the same handful of people, and they do predominantly tend to be white women, but that's also because white women make up the vast majority of teachers. So I don't want to say like that's like a racial thing strictly, because that is within
Yeah.
the grounds understanding. But yeah, what do you kind of think about that? That only a small sect of teachers seem to be making up all the dress code violations.
I don't know. It sounds like it's personal.
Okay.
Like, I mean, honestly, like, no joke. I've seen that before. Teachers have something personal against certain students, certain groups of students. It wasn't as common back in my day as it was for my son's group, because I'm speaking in like a little tiny town kind of way. When our military base closed here, which I had moved away when that happened, and the reason why when we moved back here, I wanted my son to go to Jackson because I knew the way that it was when I was here. Things really changed. When those military bases went away, that town went really small-minded. Like, I mean, literally, you see like on movies like Alabama, Little Hick Town.
Mm.
That it's like that here. So that mindset is like that here. And it's a small town, almost everybody knows everybody. And honestly, it can be like that. I've seen it to where like if you're say you have a big brother or a big sister that is like hell on wheels, teachers remember that. I know those kind of things. And I know teachers. I have friends who are teachers. My mother was a teacher of mine. So I've been on both sides of the issue. I can see both sides, and I have seen that happen where this family that people have an idea on, like these cars are no good and all this kind of stuff. So that's all a thing.
Right. Okay.
I guess it just I I can see it from multiple viewpoints.
Mm-hmm.
And with me, like I said, me being older also, I've got that going on. What's going on now is totally alien to me. I don't get it. And I'm glad I'm done with it because I don't have any more kids in school.
I kind of think it's kind of a mixture of both. So I mean, the first and foremost part is probably like people that kind of know, because this is also, these numbers also don't account for repeat offenders. So there's a good chance that,
Yeah.
knowing the numbers, there's probably like one kid getting the same 3 4 violations. So yeah, I would say it's a mixture of teachers kind of watching for it because they know they have known offenders. I would say it's also a mix of like teachers who have something out for a student. I would also say
Yeah.
that there's also the political activism. There are kids who wear politically motivated shirts, and of course, the teachers like
Oh, yeah.
to kind of force teach stand. So it is, but I would say when you have a group of like 7 to 12 people in every school that are predominantly running out most of these things, that would definitely read to me like, are these hall monitors, or like that's their job, is to go around and find like violations, or are these like teachers' numbers? But again, the numbers we have are really scant right now because no one really thought to
Yeah.
look this up, and even finding the numbers for this took me at least a month.
Yeah. I mean, I can understand that, but I'm trying to give you uh,
Mm.
um, insight on how that data, like, how did you come across that because of the situation? Now, when my son was in school, I can tell you right now, I drive up, when I used to drive in the school, I could drive up on campus to see teachers who were in direct violation of the dress code. And I was like, you're the teacher. How is this happening?
When I was teaching,
So,
I used to do it all the time too, mainly as an act of political protest. But I was also a history teacher, so I mean, like at that point in time, like I wore a T-shirt that literally said, what was it? It was Archduke Ferdinand did nothing wrong. I have a T-shirt that
I'm
said that.
talking about like teachers who
Yeah.
were first.
Oh yeah.
There were affairs, active open affairs with students, females, more females than males, and that lit me on fire.
So I
This
actually
time,
had I actually had a student that I was teaching who was I would want to say she like we didn't think, but she was very enamored with me. And she at one point in time during class like left me a note, and the way that I read it was like she was a person who was really really excited about like Shakespearean literature, and like here's a guy who kind of like understands what she's saying, and that was like, okay, that's no cause for alarm. And then a Facebook post came up that was like the student basically brought us our Facebook Messenger or Facebook posting that kind of had a little different, little more in depth of what her feelings were towards me. And so that happened. Like I called the principal, I called her like homeroom advisor, and I called her the student guidance counselor all in my office, and I had her. I was like, "Can you please stay after class?" And I'm sure she probably thought was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm gonna get an A from professor." And they all came in. I'm like, "Look, I think you're a great student. You're a political activist, and I'm so happy to see like a young person who's already interested in politics at a young age. And if you kind of keep this fire in your belly, you're definitely gonna go far with things. But as it sits right now, you and I are never going to be a thing. And I want you to understand that, like, even if you turn eight, it's not like one of those, like, when you turn 18, we can talk about it. This is a you and I will literally never be a thing. We're never going to be a couple. We're never going to go all the way with each other. I'm not the person you want to have that relationship with. Yes, I understand a lot of the boys your age are complete fucking idiots, and they're going to be complete fucking idiots for another 7 years until they hit 25 and the hormones stop raging. But what you are feeling right now towards me is not love. It is not a deep-throated compassion. This is literally just hormones firing right now. I was like, so here's what's going to happen. I'm like, this is not for debate. This is just going to happen. I'm going to move you into this other teacher's class for the rest of the semester. I'm going to have you switched out of my classes. You're not going to be able to take my classes for as long as you're at this institution. And we're also going to ask that unless it is like, if you come into this room with me, you have to have another person with you. So like
Wow.
another teacher, like another student, like
Yeah.
I can have 30 students in this room with you. It's not going to count. I need a teacher. I was like, and
But you're the
I was like,
straight ground.
right, I was like, but you're not in trouble. I'm just letting you know that like this is the steps we have to go to show you how serious I am. And of course, like 2 days later, note hit my desk. Hey, apparently you slept with her and she's pregnant and you're the father. And the
Yeah.
first word I said to my principal was, so when's the DNA test? And they're like, well, we have to put some stuff there. I just looked at him. I was like, if you give me 20 minutes, I will go into the bathroom and I will get you a fucking sample right now. All right, just give me my cell phone and a cup and like access to the internet. I will get you a sample in 20 minutes, and then we will get this done today because we're not even going to play this game. But I mean,
They break boundaries and let it be known
yeah, and
that
I had teachers. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. There were teachers that I knew about that were carrying out affairs with each other. There was
oh yeah.
teachers taking sexual favors from students. Of course, I could never prove it, but it was rumor around the school. So like you'd have to investigate
Yeah.
it. But of course, the investigation would turn up nothing. And even if you did find out about it, like a lot of times, if it was a female teacher with male students, or in the case that the rumors that I heard, one female teacher and numerous male students at the same time, no one is going to prosecute that woman. She's going to get maybe 3 months in county and get moved to another school. That and all the boys are going to get like high fived, and it's like that's still the world
Yeah.
we live in. So it was very pointless to push it past the point where the school would take care of it. The best thing you can do is
Yeah.
file a report and hope to God that something would turn up at some point in time. And people like to think that that is a very like rare occurrence. It is quite common.
No.
It is
It's
extremely
very
common.
and they rarely around here. They rarely get in trouble for it. They just get moved to a different
Oh
school.
yeah.
That's a solution.
And I was in a school in Seattle, and it's the same thing up there. It's oh, we don't need to fire him, we'll just move to a different, or we'll pull his
Yeah.
teaching certificates, and then he just goes and reapplies for them later on, and becomes a substitute teacher or a tutor.
Here at a private or yeah, you go to a private school where you don't have to have a teaching certificate.
Oh yeah.
That's where they go. So
That's actually one I have for the second season of this. If this second season is what I call the molester to higher standing pipeline, like the molester to private school pipeline. Um, The pedophile pipe, as they actually did call that when I was working in school. Um,
Oh my goodness.
yeah. So 13 is the dress code, do you feel, used as a weapon to crush children's attempts to discover themselves or during their developmental years? Kind of like that, give the kids like the ability to run wild, but keep it contained.
I, I definitely believe that I mean, as from a teenager's perspective, I guess it would be like soul crushing if I couldn't wear my hair the way that I want to wear, if I couldn't wear my dress in my mom bedroom, because I did that, and to me, in a teenage mind, I'm like, oh my God, the children here, that kind of thing. That's just, to me, that's not trade-off, let the kid do that, it's okay. So, honestly, I do believe it's something to kind of like keep them in line and keep them. I would dare say, honestly, that the dress code is rooted in conservative values.
Oh, it definitely is, and I have some stats on that to prove
I
that.
would,
So
I
what?
would honestly say just how straight and narrow it is, and that kind of it. It just really just reserved, conservative, and old-fashioned. I honestly believe that some school administration would love to see the kids like in those dresses again, and the sweater, and the bow in their hair, and and shirts and slacks. I'm sure if they could have it that way, they would definitely do it.
We had there's a school in Texas that they actually, this is how crazy they got it, and it's the closest I say you get to a school uniform than actually having a school uniform. So the boys were allowed to wear they had to wear slacks, dress shoes, and a button-up shirt or polo shirt, and their options were three hues of color. There was three approved hues of blue: gray, white, or black. If they were an upperclassman, they could wear black. And then the slacks could be two different colors. You could pick navy blue or tan. And the school actually had their hall monitors walk around with a color splotch to figure out if you were in the right hue.
Could not be me.
And I was sitting there reading this, and it was a court case that actually got challenged, and I was just sitting here reading this. If like Hitler was reading the newspaper and saw that like Texas school has three approved hues, he'd be like, "Wow, even we're not that uptight."
I want to say, Texas acting up.
Texas getting uppity. Question 14. Should school dress codes allow for special exceptions for trans or non-binary students? Or should the general rules written to allow ad populi? So I guess the first part is, do you think that the school should, because schools are extremely gender conforming, you're either a girl or a boy.
Yeah.
And not even what I would say androgynous clothing is really allowed. So first off, do you think that school dress codes should make like a category for if you are a trans person or a non-binary person, kind of what your dress code is allowed for?
I mean, why should they though? I mean, I don't think that a trans person would. I'm very ignorant when it comes to the issues on transgender and things like that. So I can't, me and my experience, I can't understand why they wouldn't be able to follow the standards for boy or girl. You know what I mean?
So I think the option you gave where you said that you guys would come to school with leather jackets and like dresses,
Yeah.
and skirts. I think that's a good example of that where it's like it's clearly like a cisgendered man who's kind of dressing halfway to a woman with a skirt, and that it violates it because it's a man wearing a woman's dress. But then if he said, okay, well I'm trans, so I'm really just a girl wearing a leather jacket and dress, and I just haven't started my transitioning because like the state laws, then they would be like, oh, okay, well, that's perfectly acceptable for a girl. So I guess the kind of question is do you think trans people should just they should be held to the standard of the gender that they're conforming to? So if there's a trans woman who is dressing as a woman, she should be held to the woman's standard? Or do you think that, no, as long as they're reaching that social norm, we're good?
I think, I mean, when guys were wearing a dress, it was on where it wasn't a violation. So I don't see why teenage guy has a dress, or if I was wearing blouse, if it's in regulation, that's fine. If he wants to turn around the next day and wear something, then, formal, whatever, I'm thinking it should be okay.
Okay.
Just as long as I guess they're not violation.
So the kind of the way that
Kind of flat here.
so the way that I kind of said is that I would say ad populi. So basically, the way you fix that issue is never write your rules so strict that trans people have to change. Yeah. Just write them so vague that when that comes up, they can just easily skirt around them. The gun control system, if you will. Do you think that, sorry, question 15, do you think that a part of quote unquote slut shaming aspects of the dress code come from its inability to adapt to new fashion trends? Or do you think that slut shaming doesn't come from dress code, it comes from somewhere else?
I think it's a little bit in dress code, and honestly, I think it's a little bit in the actors. Because, back then, had they gone to dance, or a girl going out and a guy to dance. But that was Lady Gaga. If that happened in your time, I'd be like, oh my God, he asked him to dance, or, that kind of thing. Where, I know now they can't hold hands in the hallway. And it was common for a girl to hold hands back in my day, like just friends. But you can't do that. No one can do that now. But just haters, I know more to teach my like, oh goodness. That's what I can't on the way. Whatever they're doing, just hold my hand. So I think, certain actions are acceptable. Or were acceptable back then, and they've done away with now. And that's not the way I understand. I mean, people will hold their hand. That's
So,
they call it, what would they call it? PDA.
Oh yeah, public. So, sorry, I'm going to respond. So on the first part of like, I guess you kind of already offered you answered the second one is that like, what is in fashion now is not what was in fashion when you were a kid. So yeah, the dress code always is kind of. I mean, most fashion trends change so fast it is hard to write rules as they appear.
But they do go in our first, because I've seen some of the things that we wear. It's just that, they might do it in a different way, but it's just the same thing over and over, and it's just old people want to be offended. Old conservative people want to be offended.
Well, the hand holding or public displays of affection, and this is actually on a different episode, but we will cover it in this video series. I'll give a spoiler to you in the audience. The public displays of affection only actually entered in during the late 1990s, off of the Reagan administration's moral majority, and it was actually pitched originally by some offshoots and some disciples of Jerry Falwell, the evangelical preacher, and Reverend Popoff, or not Popoff, but the guy who's in the 700. Yeah, the guy who looks like a chimpanzee. He Kenneth Copeland. Kenneth Copeland. Kenneth Copeland, the actual proof that there is a link between man and great ape. So Kenneth Copeland was the big one to start this purveyance of like, hey, if kids are like in school, they're gonna be screwing because that's what we all did. And then all these evangelical preachers started like selling themselves to schools to like go in and teach kids because the evangelical preachers could preach like Christian purity culture where the school couldn't. And gotta allow open time for everything. Gotta all teaching is valid. And that's where that got started. But then, of course, the kids are like, well, I'm not having sex myself, so like I just want to hold her hand, like we're sweethearts, and they had to keep cracking down and cracking down and cracking down, because of course if people are sexually frustrated, they're easier to control. And so the funny thing was, is they said like you can't hold hands with another woman. That's sinful. That who else has hands to hold things? Satan. And so a lot of the things you have in my school is like guys would hold hands with each other because they'd be like, "Why are you holding hands?" I'm like, "Well, I don't want him to get lost. He's my buddy. Like he's my school buddy. He's trying to protect me from sinful thoughts." And that's really where it got started. But the other fun thing about that too is that I went to a school where we were dancing in like like one of those like formals, and the gals actually had 6-inch glow in the dark rulers that said "Save Her Jesus" on them. Those, by the way, are sold by a Christian conservative evangelical like churches like merch shop. They're swag bags. So they would show us these things, and immediately I grabbed my friend who was a very gay at the time, and I started bumping and grinding on him. And they tried to do the same thing, but then we're like, well, you can't because like I can't get a man pregnant. The other fun thing too is that the evangelical people have admitted to this. It was in one of the Falwell's like testimonies from one of his longtime workers is that if you keep kids sexually frustrated, not only can you control them by like instilling Christian purity culture, which is a really in-depth thing in itself, but kids who are told they can't have sex will actually try to have sex more because now it's taboo, and then that's where you have white pregnant babies who, of course, people in dire straits will get kicked out of their homes, they'll have to turn to the church. So it's kind of like a counterintuitive, like, hand over fist way of getting more people to have more babies. And that comes into a book called The Birth Dearth by Jay Wattenberg, a very, very intelligent Jewish man who explains why evangelical Christians are more concerned with white babies than brown babies when it comes to abortion. So that's actually a very interesting, like the cross between evangelical preacherism, the PTA in schools is like a really in-depth thing. In fact, that video as it sits right now is 6 hours long. I've had to cut it down from 6 hours. It used to be 18 hours of like all the content I had to go through. So that's definitely gonna be like a
Wow.
yeah. That it was literally as I was doing research, every time I lifted up a rock, I found another rock to lift up, and farther down the rabbit hole we go.
Oh, you'd probably just you'd spaz out if you heard it from a southern perspective too.
Oh,
If you
these
just
was
went to
I did take Southern perspectives here. I'll let you listen to the sound of my research binder hitting my desk, and you can tell me exactly how big you think this is. Ready?
oh god.
It's and those that's a 180 page college notebook, and that's one of
It
two.
it just we do things a lot differently down here
Hmm.
and it's scary. It's scary how backwards we are and nobody wants to admit it. But, uh, I'm one of those that I've always swam upstream, I guess, from them, and they just
No
it
worries.
really irritates them. I'm not.
Well, yeah,
We were
because you're
never.
you're a moral and virtuous atheist. Of course that they hate that.
No,
They want you to be like shooting crack and snorting coke off a hooker's butt while you like sacrifice a baby to Baphomet.
I'm telling you, I am Satan to them. I'm a black atheist Southern woman married to a white man, agnostic, and we have an agnostic child. So
Oh
we
God,
are Satan. So
it's the triple threat.
we are not the norm for them, and I guess we're scary. So every time, I honestly I was kicked out. Well, I wasn't kicked out of a parent forum. I left, but I guess I scared them when I said something about the principal leading a prayer walk on school grounds during school hours. I thought that was inappropriate. I said something about it, and there were a couple of other people too that had something to say about it. I know around here also the Catholics are just as bad as atheists, or the Presbyterians.
Mhm.
Um, if you're not a Baptist around here, you're just dumb. So, other parents have expressed concerns about it, like, why is our principal advocating this and why is he leading and participating in this?
Mhm.
To me, that makes me feel like you'd feel some type of way about some other child, and their lack of belief or their different beliefs. So it was just inappropriate. I mentioned it. The parents went wild. Behind my back, they called me a devil worshipping witch, and my aunt, they were saying it and didn't realize that was my aunt, and she came back and told me. So when this certain principal got escorted off school grounds, and he is now charged federally with embezzlement from the school system,
Of
I
course.
told them, from the beginning that he was trash, but they didn't want to believe me. So, it is what it is. You guys just didn't want to see him for what he was because in his speech when he introduced himself, he said, "I believe in the three F's." It was family, faith, and something else. And right then, I just automatically I turned off. I
Probably
knew that something was
either
up with him.
family, faith, and freedom, or family, faith, and firearms.
It was something stupid like that. But when he said the faith part, I just knew. I was like, "Yeah, you're a piece of trash."
So,
Normally, when you have to, oh,
uh,
go ahead.
can I enlighten you into where that saying originally came from?
Please do.
So in Nazi Germany, there was a particular piece of propaganda that said, Die Mädchen lernen als Arbeiten auf dem Kinderkücherkirche. And it was a picture of a woman, and it had like three different poses of her. One was a mom, like basically pregnant and birthing kids. The other was like in the house, like over an oven, cooking like a bunch of bread. And the third one was a woman like looking like the Virgin Mary praying in church. And so, what the propaganda poster would translate to is the woman or the girl's place is as follows: Kinder, so kids, Küche,
Hmm.
kitchen, and church. If you weren't in the kitchen, if you weren't making babies, and keep in mind the Nazis literally had like special medals for women who had a certain amount of babies. I think if you had like four babies for the Reich, it was a bronze, the bronze cross of motherhood. If you had five or six, it was a silver cross of motherhood. Or no, if you had six or eight, it was a silver cross of motherhood. And then if you had like 10 and plus, it was a golden cross of motherhood. And there was one gal who ended up having like 17 kids for the Reich, which,
Ew.
if you consider, if you will, how like between 1932 and like 1945, those numbers don't match up. Yeah, there's a couple twins in that one. So
That, oh,
that's where this whole like I believe in family, faith, and freedom, like Kunda Kirche,
yeah.
Kirche. That's literally where it's taken from. And there's a lot of like weird conservative Christian things. I know up here in Washington, we literally have a neo-Nazi group that like hangs out in like a few like different towns. They're called the Coalition of Western States, and they do the same shit too. They have so many like sayings. They're like, "Yeah, we're about family, faith, and firearms." I'm like,
Oh,
what about freedom? Why wasn't that one first? Or
my whole thing though is like things like that always just send up red flags. And when I heard that,
oh yeah.
I knew that this man, something was up with him. And sure enough, now he's facing federal charges. And I was just like, but he was such a good Christian man, lady.
I honestly have to
No,
laugh. I'm just here like in my mind like George Carlin, where it's like if you're not smart enough to understand why you shouldn't be embezzling school funds from the federal government, maybe you should have been a teacher in the first place.
it. I mean, it was crazy. I knew. I pick up on certain things, but when he said his little speech, I was like, "Yep, he's trash."
Hmm.
And it never occurred to anyone else. They were in such shock and awe when it happened, and I was like,
So I
"Stop
guess
Pikachu face."
you kind of answered question 16, but I've always left it optional for folks. Did you ever or did you ever experience or feel staff members making sexually aggressive or sexually suggestive marks to you or your friends at school based on your dress code?
Not me personally,
Okay.
because like I said, they knew my mother, they knew my aunt, so that was absolutely hands off. But to my friends, yes.
Okay.
Um, I know one time a teacher told me a story about how pretty my aunt was in the class in front of everyone, and I was kind of embarrassed. I was
Hmm.
like, "You gross," but it it was never directed towards me. But yeah, my friends, I had some friends who were involved with teachers personally. So I mean, I have seen that, but it didn't affect me directly. But yes, it
Okay.
did go on.
So the next one, I'm gonna say, these are certain comments that have actually been made before courtrooms or court hearings. Do you think teachers should be fired on the spot if they make comments like the following? So here's comment number one. Quote, "Those pants she were wearing are advertising. I mean, look at it. Her ass is just hanging out right there."
I mean, I guess not fired on the spot, but you do need to be disciplined immediately.
Okay.
The course of action used to be,
That was a
of course,
principal. That was a principal who made that comment, by the way.
uh, I mean, of course, it needs to be investigated,
Hmm.
just to make sure that, and if they honestly actually said that, then you have to go.
Okay. So yeah, you think that like that one should be like a firing offense then? Like
Oh gosh, yes.
okay, gotcha. I would say that the policy is a little more lenient for like students because like they're like in some cases the like if a 10-year-old said that I'm like okay well, he's a 10-year-old he doesn't know he's probably repeating like what his dad says or something.
No, but an adult saying this
Yeah,
to a child, that,
way out of bounds. Um,
yeah.
so how about this one? Quote, "Little miss, that shirt leaves little to the imagination. You know that." End quote.
think it's a fireable offense, but I do think that disciplinary action needs to be taken.
Okay.
Corrective
Um,
action.
quote, I swear to God, I walk around school and all I see are little hookers. Little hookers everywhere. I want to hand them a $20 bill sometimes. End
Oh
quote.
boy. And that's administration to a child?
That was a principal in a courtroom defending why he had groped a 16-year-old girl.
Oh, ooh, yikes. Why is it always the principal?
Well,
Yeah,
I mean, like there's a ton of other examples here in my research text document. I just kind of found it funny how because like the term principle is like from the Machiavellian term princeps, which is supposed to be like the moral, like kind of the moral arbitrator of like schooling, and that's what Machiavelli believes like the principal should be. It's like
yeah,
he's the guy who kind of like decides like what is and isn't the way of the world in his school, and yet like here are these like supposed to be like the best guys with years in the business who are like all about helping children, and like the primary systems by which we kind of rule the school. Like this is like the king of the castle here, saying this stuff. Like if it's a teacher, yeah, I mean teachers say that shit all the time. That's something new, but this is the big guy. This is the guy who's supposed to be watching
yeah,
the watchers. Um,
yeah.
and he's making these comments. There were other ones. I mean, I can read off another one. This one's from a gym teacher. Quote, and y'all need to be wearing booty short, or y'all need to be wearing shorter shorts when you come around here. I mean, do you really think you can play tennis in skirts that short? Skirts that short?
Oh,
Just to kill the vibe farther. Quote, I'm not a fan of these. Let's see, I'm not a fan of these choir robes. Let's just say I'm not a fan of nuns either. Um,
I mean, that's not as bad, but I mean, it's still bad. Somebody who's supposed to be, like you said, the watcher. I mean, above that is the superintendent.
do you
And
want one from a superintendent?
oh goodness,
Yeah,
go ahead.
I came prepared. Okay, so this superintendent was actually fired. Well, he resigned. He pulled a Nixon. Quote, I mean, I can understand why some of these guys are walking around with hard-ons and grabbing at the girls. I mean, look at them. If I was 6 years younger, I wouldn't even need Viagra.
Oh, oh.
Isn't this magical? Um,
Mm,
and here's the thing too. These are just like you can go online and just look up. A lot of these are in court doc. That's the thing too is that these are not like said like oh this is locker room talk like they said on like a hot mic when they were like
yeah.
these were guys that were literally in court for the crimes that they're being tried, and they're saying this stuff.
Oh, oh. And it's so odd because some of them are probably fathers, which is really gross. That have their own families. So,
I mean, some of them are
mm,
probably fathers to daughters who are friends of the girls that they were like molesting or doing this stuff to.
mm.
Um,
See, in the South back a long time ago, they run you out on the rail, as they'd say. Some of these fellows need that. Some of these women do.
I have a
But
feeling that if it was in the South, some of these guys would get the South Park treatment with the whole like nice. Not gonna lie. Of course, also if it was the South,
and,
some of these
and
people would be making the comments about their sisters. So, I mean,
um, there's nothing surprises me, I guess, anymore.
mhm.
Nothing.
Question 18: if you did ever receive public shame for your clothes or the way you dressed, was it more likely to come from men or women?
Um, it wasn't necessarily saying that I got it. It was just like, I guess, like, well, that's weird because one outfit I remember in particular, it was combat boots with a dress.
Hmm.
And that was the style, and it was nobody understood why that was going on, especially the women teachers. They were just like, what's happening right there? What's that mean?
Gotcha.
So and I mean it wasn't. It was just I guess questioning like, what are you doing? But the men, they never said anything. But I'm sure that there was probably things said.
Behind
We
closed
used to
doors.
wear on game days. Yeah, on game days we wore our game At school we wore our pep rally uniforms.
Hmm.
Our pep rally uniforms were like old-fashioned cheerleader uniforms, bloomers and the little skirt and the
Hmm.
little top. So I'm sure probably the male teachers had something to say with that because we wore it to school and then to the pep rally.
Right. So then I guess the same question. It sounds like you were more likely to experience, female students talking poorly about you then. Okay, and then the male staff were just kind of like if they said something, they didn't make it known.
Yeah, it was kept up under wraps unless they unless they could. Some girls they got that vibe off of, you know what I'm saying? Like it's okay to talk to you that way.
Hmm.
The so they had that that thing going with them to where they would say it to one another. But I guess I put off that vibe, and with my mother being in administration, absolutely you do not talk to her like that. So,
Gotcha.
I mean, I didn't get it, but those girls, especially, I would say the volleyball team and like the softball team, the coaches and everything, you're with them a lot. You're with them a lot, not during school hours. They were with one another. Um, just, it wasn't weird for the coach to give you a ride home back then, but, and so I think that, they had that kind of relationship and to where they could say things like that and it wasn't a bad thing.
They had a rapport, you might say.
They could, yeah,
Okay.
they could speak to each other in that way, but I didn't give off that vibe, and
Hmm.
I just didn't hang around my teachers like that after school.
Gotcha. So I guess our next question, what are your thoughts on the fact, or what appears to be the fact that women typically receive harsher punishments for the same code or dress code violations as men?
True.
So like let's
A
say,
lot of times, guys,
oh good.
like you said, they could go and put on a sweatshirt or turn the shirt inside out, or grab a pair of pants from somebody. But girls, a lot of times, whenever it was like just egregious dress code with girls, you had to change clothes, and most of the time that meant going home because what they used to do at our school was the things from Lost and Found. They would wash them up and keep them as extra clothing
Mhm.
and dig through it so that someone wouldn't have to go home. But most times, girls would have to go home.
Right. So with this one actually, it's not so much of it's they actually did an experiment where they had two students wear the identical shirt that violated dress code, and they found out that where the boy only got a throw a sweatshirt on it, the girl actually ended up getting she had to be dismissed. She had to go home, so she couldn't. It wasn't to go home and come back. She had to go home, and then upon returning, she actually had a 3 days of in school suspension or lunch detention.
What?
Yeah, for wearing the exact same shirt that the boy did.
That's a severe punishment for a dress code violation.
Hmm.
Usually, it dress code violations were usually like just a write up, even if that. And then, but if it kept happening, if you got multiple instances, that's when you went to detention. And then if you kept on, then it rolled over to in school suspension. So you had to be doing it just like consistently to be called out like that for it. But
No. No,
it,
these students are pretty much they just show teachers the same picture, and the students had the same video of them doing the exact same things. And more teachers were like, "Oh no, she has to go home. Like, go home, not come back, get lunch detention." And the boy was just like, "If he's got a sweatshirt, he can cover up. That's fine."
yeah.
It was something like a heavy metal shirt. So I got
Uh,
question 20. We're almost done. Do you believe that the dress code enforces a gendered paradigm? Um, the male, you're either male or female, and there is no in between.
Definitely.
Okay. You
They
did say
never took, and
you did talk about the Christian conservative aspect, but
yeah. But see, back in my day, they didn't there was never any forethought about other, you
right,
know? It was either a boy or girl. There was never any
right.
consideration. And even for gay students,
Oh, really?
I don't think they really even took them into consideration.
Um, so here's another big one. So, did you know that in several schools that were polled, women of color are still likely to be accosted by staff members before, women of color are still twice as likely to be sexually accosted um, by a staff member before graduating high school. So this goes up to triple the rate for a Native American woman. And in religious schools, women of any color, creed, or ethnicity, the rate of sexual molestation or groping goes up by five times.
Oh, I can see where that happens in a Christian school, honestly. It, I guess everyone just expects it to be safer there when it's really not,
Hmm.
and no one's looking right there. But
Right.
and women of color, I can honestly see where that one might happen too,
Well, I mean, we see
because
the religious part makes sense because we look at how expansive the Catholic Church's sexual abuse went for the longest time before that was unveiled. Um,
yeah,
and of course, Native American women. I was actually kind of amazed that the Native American rates weren't higher, considering of how. I mean, how many missing Native women go on the reservations? How much sexual abuse they all suffer from? Their diaries are just riddled with childhood traumas, and then of course you have a federal government that still to
yeah.
this day is trying to exterminate them.
I didn't realize like the rates on them until I think I watched a YouTube video and it was
Hmm.
explaining some things, and I'm just like, geez, they've got it rough.
Oh yeah. Sorry, I had to rip out my page there. Uh, have you ever had a speaker come to your school and teach some form of purity culture, or basically a religious nut come to your class and be like, if you don't wear your skirt the right way, you're gonna get pregnant. Do you ever have
No, I
you really? That's amazing.
I don't remember it in school, not in my day.
You must
No,
be the
I can't say.
only you must be the only school in the South that didn't have evangelical preach. Well, I guess it's in the South. Evangelical preachers knocking at your door.
Yeah, back in my day, that they were really just they didn't do things like that to us. I have to give that to them. They
Hmm.
kept that away from us
Um,
in school. Now, as far as like any other time, I mean, it was fair game. But I don't remember them like coming up to on the school grounds doing things like that or giving things away or having special presentations. It didn't happen.
so questions 23 and 24 are kind of, I mean, you could still answer them if you'd like, but I think you kind of already answered them. Has your past experience with dress code shaped your wife the way you dress in your daily life now? Any like scars or insecurities? Like you said, no one really touched up on that. I mean, do you really feel you have any like insecurities or leftover traumas from any dress code?
Nah,
Yeah.
nope.
Um, then 24, what were ways, if any, that you pushed back against the dress code? I would say the combat boots and dresses is kind of some pushback. It's notable.
Yeah, it's against the norm, but I mean, I was still in dress code,
Hmm.
so I wasn't in violation. Um, I guess I wore Converse and dresses. Um, I can't think of anything besides my pep rally uniform, which would have been out of school dress code, but it was acceptable because that was one of those special occasions, you know, that we could wear our pep rally uniforms in school. So that was the only time I violated quote unquote dress code. And the volleyball shorts with
Hmm.
the Sophie shorts they call them. We could wear those with our t-shirts for pep rally also. But that was the only time and it wasn't a violation because it was allowed on pep rally day. So I never really violated dress code.
Gotcha. Um, so was the dress code ever? I guess it says it was ever forced on you outside of school. It sounds like no. I don't think you hung out around or you
Mm-mm.
bumped into your teachers outside of school, where they would actually like.
No.
I had teachers that actually bumped into me one time when I was in the mall and I was in Hot Topic and they saw me in there and they came in there and like tried to get me to leave and were like, "We'll call your parents, tell me you're shopping at Hot Topic." I'm like, "Okay, where do you think I got the money to shop at Hot Topic from?"
Oh my God. No.
Yeah,
Usually our teachers, we didn't see them that much outside of school. When we did, we kind of ran away from them.
right. They probably run away from you too. It was like, I don't get paid enough to deal with these kids on the weekends.
Yeah.
Um, so now I guess um, have the three or four words you used to describe your dress code have they kind of changed? Now that you kind of have some new insights on this, have I swayed your opinion at all?
Uh, well, no, I don't think so. Like I said, I was coming from my point of view as opposed to now for
Okay,
dress codes, and it seems from what you told me, it seems like things are really different.
gotcha. Well, and like I said,
And
like I always like to ask that question before and after, just to kind of get a feel how the interview actually
yeah,
went.
I know when my son was in school, it was getting really strict, and it just things didn't make sense. But he was like me; he really didn't have um a uh, a certain style. He was known honestly as the kid with the cat T-shirts. He probably has 50 plus cat T-shirts.
Hmm.
The cats with laser eyes, the cats
Yeah.
in a taco, the cats in a burrito, that kind of thing. He was really silly. So he has a million and one cat T-shirts. So that's all he wore was jeans, pants, and cat T-shirts.
All right. So our last bit of the interview here, and we're done with questions. I don't know if can you pull up the general media channel on the Discord real quick on your phone? Should see some kids.
Okay, the general media.
Yep, it's just a general top one. Should see it.
Okay,
Okay,
got
so
it.
go ahead and scroll the top picture of the this kids in dress clothes. Go ahead and scroll the top of that. And this is actually brought to us by AlabamaPublicHealth.gov. So these are actually notes I got from your school, and this kind of outlines another thing I wanted to do. Where one of the schools I found in Wyoming actually had their dress code was 17 pages long, and of those pages, five of those, or five, six of those pages and it was front and back, were just columns in size 12 font, single space, Times New Roman, two columns of all the different bands, brands, and subject matter you could not have on your clothes as part of their dress code. And
Oh,
that, yeah, it was that extensive. Black Sabbath was on that list. Oh, by the way, they were all alphabetized too. At least they alphabetized it.
oh
Yeah,
my
it
God!
was
If
six
if Bad
pages.
Religion was on there, I would have been like, nope, I'm not, I'm
Bad
not coming here.
Religion, My Chemical Romance was on that one. I was laughing at that
Uh,
one. The Teletubbies. I don't know why that one was on
the
there.
Teletubbies.
Yeah, you can't have Teletubbies, I guess. Um,
Mm.
a lot of them were just like someone Googled like the Rolling Stones top 500 metal bands of all time, and then they just like copy and pasted the list.
Oh,
Okay,
the picture that I'm looking at. Do you mean the little kid in like the yellow shirt and the green jersey? Is that the picture?
yeah, that's what we're looking at here. So you'll see about
Oh my God!
looks like six kids here. So
Yeah, they
so
look hot. Like
yeah,
it looks uncomfortable.
which of
It could be
these
quite warm up under there.
kids do you think is violating dress code?
Mm. Honestly, maybe the girl in the back in that velour suit,
Okay. Also points to you for knowing
possibly.
that. Everybody kept calling it like in like the sheen suit. I'm like, that's velour. Okay, so you got her in the velour looks like a velour bodysuit. Anybody else?
um, Honestly, around here, that kid in the jersey could possibly be pinpointed
Yeah, gotcha.
because
Okay.
they would say that was gang affiliated.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
know at one point they wouldn't let us wear certain jackets. They were called 8 ball jackets
Hey, I
because
mean,
they thought that they were gang affiliated.
I mean, the Green Bay Packers is a pretty big gang. I mean, they do commit to violent acts quite often, especially when they lose. Those. So this is actually a trick question. All of the students are in violation of the dress code.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, so this is how strict this thing gets. So our gentleman to the left, far left, the young king with his yellow shirt, he is actually in violation of dress code because his shirt is not tucked in.
Oh,
Also, his
okay.
collar is not buttoned up so you can see his undershirt. The gentleman in the
Oh,
jersey,
okay.
the green jersey to his immediate right, he is, like you said, jersey gang affiliation, because the green, it could be affiliated with a gang in that area. He also has an unregulated hairstyle, which is that type of fro he's got. You can't really see
Oh,
it well when
oh
I
my
got
goodness.
this picture because this picture was actually taken from a clothing advertisement. He's wearing
Uh-huh.
Crocs, which are considered open-toed shoes, and he also has the middle strap of his backpack clicked, which is also a violation of dress code. Um, I don't know why they just made that a violation of dress code. Uh,
Wow.
the girl to his immediate right, she is in violation as well because she has her sleeves rolled up on a long sleeve shirt. If you wear a long sleeve shirt, you must have your shirts down if you're a lady. She also is wearing earrings that are too long. They reach down behind her neckline. She has to wear those little like dot pendant earrings. And she's wearing, it's kind of hard to see, but she is wearing form-fitting jeans. So that's another thing I ran into is that
Uh-huh.
form-fitting jeans are a rule against women. Men can kind of men wearing form-fitting jeans is kind of hit and miss, but across the board, most women can't wear form-fitting jeans. Our gentleman to the immediate right with
Yeah.
the red shirt, he has his shirt buttoned up, but again, we can see his undershirt and it's not fully buttoned. Although if you have an overshirt like that, you can actually leave the end tucked out, like it can be out, as long as your undershirt is tucked in. So
Yeah.
I don't know how you would tell that, but so you'll notice his sleeves are
I
rolled up, which is perfectly acceptable for men to have their sleeves rolled up on button-up shirts. It's a
oh, okay.
weird rule. The woman in the back, like you said, velour tracksuit. You nailed that one right on the head. She's also wearing an unregulated hairstyle. You are not allowed to have your ponytails. You have to have your hair just tied back, just back. No ponytails. And she's also wearing a velour suit, which is a single bodysuit. You can't wear that in school. Girls have to wear two different pieces of clothing. The girl to our far right was always very hard to do. So she's wearing a side bag, which a lot of schools actually do consider those side satchels to be in violation of dress code. She is also wearing form-fitting jeans, and she has a hoodie on over top of her button-up shirt. Which, when you come into school, you're supposed to
Oh,
take your hoodie off because you could be hiding guns or drugs inside of it.
oh my goodness.
Oh,
Jeez.
so if you want to go down to the next picture we have right below that one, this gets even funnier.
Yeah.
All right, so I'll ask you again, although I'm pretty sure I know what your answer is going to be. Who here is actually, there is at least, I will say this isn't a trick question, there is at least one student who is following dress code. Can you pick them out?
In the there's one student following dress code. Honestly,
There's at
it
least
would have
one.
to be one of the guys.
Okay.
And the guy, I would say the guy that it will probably be the gentleman in the back.
hmm Okay, so that's a very good guess. It's also wrong. We'll go through this again. So gal on our far left, booty shorts across the board, no no. She's also
Yep.
wearing what is considered a see-through top. We can see her undershirt through her shirt, so that's a no-go. And again,
Mhm.
side satchels or no. The girl behind her, again, booty shorts, again wearing a shirt that's got short sleeves on it. Girls aren't usually supposed to wear that, but she's also wearing a hat. No hats in school. The gentleman in the front, very forefront, is the only one who's actually following dress code. So he has a regulation haircut.
Oh,
He has his
even
shirt
though that his shirt is untucked.
well, because the overshirts can be untucked as long as his undershirt is tucked in.
Oh,
So, and
okay.
his shirt
I
buttons up all
gotcha.
the way at the collar. His jeans or his pants are rolled up, but it looks like they're built that way. But they're down below his fingertips. And while he is carrying
Yep.
his backpack on his shoulder, it is not a shoulder bag, and he is also actually has his sleeves
Yeah.
rolled up the proper way. Some schools actually have rulers to see how far you roll your sleeves up, but that's okay. The kid behind him
Oh my
he
goodness.
has an unregulated haircut because he has a comb over. You can see his undershirt, and it's not tucked in, so his cover over is completely unbuttoned, and he is again wearing form
I
fitting.
missed that one.
He's wearing form fitting jeans, and then of course the girl to our right, farthest right, she has a booty shorts. She has her undershirt. You can see her camisole, and she's wearing what is classified as a sleeveless shirt. She's also in violation.
Mm, mm, mm.
So I guess our final kind of picture here of the school advertisements. In this one, two people are passing dress code. I'll give you the exact. I won't tell you the exact two, but I will let you know that at least two students exactly are passing a dress code. I want you to see if you can guess which ones.
Would it be the female with the long dress and the jeans underneath?
That is one of them. Yes.
Okay. And then the second one, I would say, I know the other two girls are out definitely.
hmm
is so weird because these guys are both wearing form-fitting jeans, but it doesn't matter because they're guys.
Yeah, the rules are kind of
Um,
passing loose on that
oh,
one.
I don't know if I'm seeing this correctly. I have my glasses off, but is the guy in the blue shirt, is that tucked in? I would say he's in dress code then.
Okay, so you think it's the guy to his immediate right, or to the middle girl's immediate right is the guy?
Yes,
Okay, so
yes.
you are also correct. Both of those are, and I'll explain why. So of course, girl on the left, booty shorts, gone. Also, she's wearing shoes without socks. That's another one.
Oh,
That's also on our
didn't even notice
guy
that.
to our right. I can only assume his shirt buttons all the way up because it's tight, it's not opened up. But his backpack is slouching off his back. It should be up in your mid back section. They actually have rules on that. His water bottle. That water bottle is not okay. You're not supposed to have water bottles at school because you could pack them full of booze or explosives. Again, his
Oh,
pants, no socks on his shoes. Girl to your left, she is correct. She has a dress with sleeves that have a cuffed sleeve, which is acceptable in a lot of places. It kind of bypasses the short sleeve rule. She's wearing pants that go all the way down, and of course she has socks on. She's really hard to see because of the lighting. The gentleman to her right is got his backpack where it's supposed to be. His shirt is buttoned up all the way because it's nice and tight. His pants are not considered form-fitting, just because, like I said, it's fast and loose those rules. And he's wearing socks with his shoes. And the girl on the right is wearing. You can't even see her pants. That's another one that they'll get you for. Is that if your shirt covers your pants and it looks like you're not wearing pants, they'll get you for that one too.
yeah.
And
Well, I mean,
again,
just the length of that, anyways,
mhm.
if that's considered a dress, that's way too short.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and that's another one you can get her for too. I think it's one of those like weird like
Yeah,
shirts into skirt things, or just like a long coat. She's also not wearing socks with her
yeah.
also not wearing socks with her shoes. They're really anal retentive about that one. Showing way too much ankle, I guess. So yeah, that's this is and then the final picture is just kind of one that I picked up from a school in Nairobi that was on display that someone sent me, and I just thought it was kind of funny because it's like wow, what's wrong with this picture here? But yeah, this is how strict some of these dress codes can get in Alabama, and this is actually from a like a teaching rubric. I even took this, and the whole time I was like, all these kids are dressed fine. Like this is within the social norm of dictation, and the school is like, no, of these like 15, 16 students, only like three of them are within dress code, and you have to, and they even tell like you need to be on the lookout for this. Like this is the eye you need to look at this stuff with, and I was like, so
That is so odd.
we can't grant a critical lens to like racial issues in Alabama, but we can grant a critical fucking lens to kids who wear like socks with no or shoes with no socks.
I just, that just blows me away, honestly, because if
Hmm.
you're concentrating that hard on dress code, how hard are you concentrating on your lesson plan? Some of these things are like totally oblivious to me. Like it never would have crossed my mind to flag a student with shoes and no socks.
Yeah, it was one of the ones that I was like literally like scrolling through, and I was like, what the shisa? 'Cause like I said, those little kids look good to me. Like they just look like stuff you'd see in like news advertisements. And that was kind of the thing too, is that a lot of women's clothing is very restrictive because like girls want to go and buy like certain dresses or certain clothes. They're kind of limited to what they can buy. And like I used to work in a department store, and we had like the junior section, which was for like young women into like teenagers into women, and like they had size zeros, they had size twos. This was women's petites. And pretty much in the summertime, you were wearing the booty shorts that are literally so small they're disappearing up your ass. We're talking like the booty shorts where the side is just stretch like pieces of like stretch nylon string.
Yeah,
if you were wearing bikinis, the only options you had were thong bikinis or the micro bikinis. And this is kind of like so if the girls can't buy clothes that look, you know, not super revealing. And I'm going to say that because, like, definitely when people build clothes, they build them for the male gaze, as far as women are concerned, especially teenagers. Like, what is a girl supposed to do? Like, do you want her like? And it was such a weird line to ride between, like, yes, women should be allowed to dress however they want, and if they want to feel sexy, they should feel sexy. Alternatively, I don't think that conversation should extend to like teenagers because, like, I don't want to call teenagers sexy. On the same point, I don't want to like have women running
yeah.
around like it's the Handmaid's Tale, and it was a very nuanced conversation to walk, and it's a problem that's definitely like a lock pick, like a lock to pick on a door, and the schools just respond to it with, let's just put one of those C4 breaching charges on the door the way the military does, step back and just blow the door off its hinges and call it even.
Yeah, that was very eye-opening
hmm
to see what's in violation. And these just look, I mean, some of them they're obvious, but the other things that you pointed out, I never in a million years
Um,
would have
so
um
I guess with that
pointed that out.
I guess with that information, there's just one final thing I have before we can go. I'm gonna read off some words, and I want you to kind of decide if whether or not they appeal to the dress code as you kind of understand it now. Um, and you just have to say yes or no. So, sexist?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yes,
How about transphobic? Yes, no, I don't know.
I would definitely say yes.
Okay. Misogynistic?
I could see yes.
Ableist?
Yeah, I could see where
Okay.
that
Uh,
could play. Yes.
yeah, sorry. Here's another fact that just popped in my mind. So I actually went and looked up some private schools in America, and I found out that the most expensive school uniform for a private school was $6,000 per uniform. They were hand-tailored clothes. And the cheapest uniform in the country I could find was $60, which required a white button-up shirt and a pair of blue jeans.
Wow. I know
And,
at the hair store they're really inexpensive
mhm.
for the shirt and the khakis. The boys have a choice of shorts or pants. Girls, it's either navy, I believe, navy skirts or khaki skirts.
So
Um,
with that in mind, of like there's a school in America that requires you to pay $6,000 for for one uniform, and you're required to have three. Would you consider dress codes to be kind of have a classist bent to them?
oh, definitely.
Okay.
Yeah, with that situation.
How about bigoted? Do you think the dress code's bigoted in any way?
Yes,
Okay.
it definitely could be.
Do you think it's draconian?
As far as
Sorry, go ahead.
oh, um, it could be bigoted and definitely towards a racist,
hmm
racial wise, and then religious also,
hmm how about draconian?
or discriminatory. Let me say
Oh,
discriminatory.
gotcha. Discriminatory. How about draconian?
I'm not going to be that dramatic with it,
Oh, okay.
but honestly, very restrictive.
Restrictive. Well, that's the next one is restrictive. How about gynophobic?
Yeah,
So
explain that one.
built with a fear of women.
Mm, yes,
Hmm.
yeah, definitely.
Um, homophobic.
I could see where, yeah,
Hmm.
I have a feeling
I would say
that it
yes.
could be used against.
I said yes to that one only because they don't allow men to have tight jeans because apparently they don't believe men can have nice juicy asses. Yeah, I mean if
I
we're gonna
can see where.
the joke about my high school was our principal was known as the Oberstufenführer because he actually was a Nazi, like he was part of a white supremacist group. And so we used to make jokes. We're walking around the school. We'd walk past him, like goose stepping and doing a Nazi salute. And I used to turn to my friend and go, "Oh, Kyle, after we get done doing all this goose stepping, we're going to have buns of steel, yeah."
Well, I mean, I, I could imagine a gay guy having a blouse on and administration finding a way, to single him out. So
Oh,
yeah.
I mean, my school singled me out because I wore a scarf in wintertime, and I wore it when I was inside like the schoolhouse because like there's nowhere else to stick it. Um, and they tried to get me they hit me for a violation as what was it endorsing homosexual opinions as if like a
That
man as if scarves are not something that men wear in America when it's fucking cold outside and there's pounding snow.
that's just so crazy. I
hmm
mean, me coming from a little southern school, you would think that I would be privy to all of that, and it did not happen in my experience. You you just had to be just egregious to be called out anyways. It had
hmm
to be something just crazy
well that's actually
for
like
them to even call you on it.
that's
So,
actually how a lot of schools were prior to the implementation of dress codes in the 1982 at federal level, but in really the 1980s. on a state by state level. Most people were just like, hey, look, if it's stuff I'd see you walking around town with, which for a lot of people that's the only clothes you could get anyways. They just didn't like there was no need for
Yeah,
it. Um, would you say that dress codes are very white?
definitely,
Yeah, you said Eurocentric
definitely.
earlier, so do you think
Um,
dress codes invalidates identity?
yes,
Okay. Do you consider it weaponized?
yes,
Okay. I
it
was kind
can be.
I
Yeah.
was I was kind of gonna give that one to you because like literally in white society everything is weaponized. It's kind of the only thing we do well. Um,
I mean, literally, like black kids, like what I was saying about the bomber jackets and
mhm,
the 8 ball jackets, that was seen as gang affiliation. When all that was that was the popular thing that we were seeing entertainers and celebrities wear. Another thing that they said, what was it? There was a brand called Cross Colors, and they saw that as gang affiliation, and that was literally all it was just an urban brand that hit big.
oh yeah,
So
we had
it
we
was just like, they were always saying it was gang affiliated, and I was like, no, all these are just popular clothes that celebrities that we're familiar with are wearing. So, and then the turning the clothes backwards,
mhm.
they called that out. They started flagging that.
At our school you weren't allowed to wear
The
Timberlands.
crisscross. Oh, really?
Yeah, you couldn't wear
It didn't get that strict.
Timberlands.
It was
Um,
funny because with the crossover with the grunge and like the pageant girl scene and all that kind of stuff, we could wear our Daisy Dukes with our thermals and our what do you call it? The oh my gosh, Timberlands and the shirts. What were they called? This is ridiculous. It's getting late and I'm old, so
no
words
worries.
aren't making any sense.
We're pretty much
But
done here.
but yeah, we were able to wear things like that and like cross all the styles together.
Gotcha.
So it was just a conglomeration, and I'm sure it just freaked out the teachers, like what is going on here.
All
But
right.
yeah, some things were immediately seen as threatening,
All right. All right. Well, that pretty much is all the
and
information I wanted to dump on you tonight. That's the end of our interview. I appreciate you and thank you for coming on to this. It's been really hard to get people to do these interviews just because time locks up or it was a conversation they didn't want to have.
yeah,
I
I
had
just felt like I blundered through a lot of things. But I
oh,
mean,
you're
you
good.
threw some things at me that I never in a million years I didn't think of it on a surface level,
Well,
and it kind of hit me, and I'm just like, wow.
well, yeah, and that's actually the thing with these interviews and with this video series is to kind of unveil those issues. And I've had a lot of people that because I release these interviews after the video comes out, so everybody can see that I'm on the up and up. But I had one person that they started with the interview, and then we kind of started bringing up some childhood trauma, and they said, okay, we're gonna cut this. I can't go further. And I said that's fine. So that one's not gonna get released because I have respect for them, and like I don't want them to see have their trauma unleashed on a YouTube docu series. I'm not that petty. I'm not that desperate for
Yeah.
clicks. So, but there was a lot of people that they would start learning about what I had to say, and they either cut the interview short, or they said I couldn't get the time, or that they just didn't want to talk about it, or the fact that my channel wasn't really small, and they would say that they'd kind of like to see like more information come out before they kind of started introspection. So I'm very appreciative for you for sharing your stories with me and allowing me to get your opinion on this stuff.
Oh, you're welcome. Like, I mean, my experience was it was different. Now, honestly, it was sheltered. It
Hmm.
could be considered a sheltered. Um, I, the things that you revealed to me, just I never thought of those things happening, and just to see, that that's the reality of somebody else's experience. I'm just like, dang, like where was this happening?
Yeah.
And
Uh,
the strictness, and for me not to get it, I'm in Alabama. Me to experience that kind of stuff, but no, it it was somewhere else.
and if you want to, in the general chat, I do have one of my videos up top that would take you to my website where you can kind of see. I have one about fascism in America. I have one about the schools using a CIA level tactic to interrogate students to try and get them to cough up information so they don't have to do investigations. There's a lot of stuff that goes on in schools that people don't realize, and it's just built up over time and no one's talked about it. The biggest one was the fact that I was trained with a CIA level interrogation tactic to basically shake down children so that we could grease them for information about like petty stuff, like, do you know who was smoking? We found a pack of Pall Malls in the school's bathroom. I'm like, okay. And they're like, we gotta go shake down the students. I'm like, I'm pretty, why? They go, so we can punish them. I'm like, the kids are smoking Pall Malls. I think that's punishment enough.
I
And
was a camel girl in school myself.
are you sitting down?
Yeah.
So I used to do Lucky Strikes, unfiltered
Oh,
and toasted
yikes.
at a pack a day.
Oh boy. I think
You can really taste
between
the cancer.
amongst probably five of us, we could keep a pack of cigarettes about 2 weeks. That's how much we didn't smoke.
Right,
It was for the aesthetic.
right.
And then once we got out of high school, that's when the habit just we were addicted by then. But I remember collecting Camel Cash, and I think it was probably five or six of us, no joke, that shared this Camel shirt.
Hmm.
We had enough cash, and we got a shirt, and we used to rotate it. Like, okay, you can wear it today, and then you give it to me, and I can wash it, and then I can wear it. And so, like, none of us ever. I don't remember any of us ever getting popped on dress code with that, because I mean, it was a cigarette shirt.
Well, yeah, because well,
I had Big Johnson's T-shirts, and
yeah,
I don't remember ever getting in trouble with that either.
I always laughed because I knew that like because Camel cigarettes were seen as like communist cigarettes.
Oh my God,
Yeah, that was always what I
are you
remember. Like,
serious?
I had teachers in school that are like, and in the 1980s when Russia invaded Afghanistan, they didn't smoke Marlboros, they smoked Camels, and that's why it's a communist cigarette. And I was like, I'm pretty sure they
Oh
just
my
smoked anything.
God.
All right. Well,
We were kids. We liked the Camel.
yeah, yeah, Camel Joe. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and let you go. Thank you so much, and you have a wonderful night. And
You're
I will
welcome.
send you a link to the video when it is out.
Yeah, and I'd love to have another discussion or be privy to another one because it just
Um,
amazes me how different someone else's experience was,
oh yeah.
as compared to.
So I actually have. I'll pull up a little list real fast, and I have like. The next video after this is called All Guns Blazing, and it's about discussing school shooters. We also have one episode 10, which is the Parent Teachers Association, which I can have you on for, and that's actually discussing how the PTA has turned into a kind of a special interest group to get the schools to pass
Oh,
legislation they can't do legally through the government. We also have episode
yikes.
12 is Holy War, where I discuss the influx of zealotry and evangelicalism in American schools. And then
Definitely.
episode 14 is called Oversexed and Undertaught, where we discuss sex ed. That one's going to be a big doozy. I'm going to have a lot of women on a panel kind of thing for that. And then, of course, my episode 15, which is the season finale, is going to be a live stream Q&A called Killing the Messenger, where I'm just going to take on hate comments or positive comments and just kind of have like an ask question time with a panel. So I'll probably have you on for at least one of those else if you are interested. But other than that, I'm going to go ahead and let you go. And you have a wonderful night, okay?
You too. Thank you very much.